E-commerce solution is an integral part of the Microsoft Dynamics AX for retail omnichannel vision. In this module, I will describe about the starter online store that includes the patterns and best practices that are required to support production ready deployments. This includes powerful search driven adaptive experiences offered by the SharePoint Server 2013. So, with this particular module, we will be covering search driven sites. Further, we will discuss about cross-site publishing, wherein we will talk through how from a catalog we will push the data to the retail storefront. Further, we will discuss about web paths and display templates which are part of the solution of Storefront. Then we will talk through query rules, refiners and faceted navigation. And we will also talk about query suggestion and query spelling. And finally, we will discuss through usage history and analytics. Let's start by talking about search driven sites in the first lesson. The out of the box starter storefront included with the product is fully functional, and it can be seen as a starting point to create a customized user experience based on specific needs. So, here with search driven sites, we will mainly look around term store, catalog site collection, rendering site collection, asset site collection and search index. So, the main thing is crawling of the data from the catalog site collection and holding the data with the search index for having the term store populated with the navigational structure, and rendering site collection having the queries ready for it to connect to the search index and get the data. So, now here first thing to look around is term store. So, term store holds the complete product hierarchy. SharePoint Server 2013 includes the term store management tool that you use to create and manage term sets. If you have the appropriate permission, you can use the term store management tool to perform different set of tasks like creating or deleting a term set, adding or deleting terms and defining synonyms, import terms and make enterprise keywords into managed terms by moving them into a term set. So, term store would be the one where we will be holding for Storefront the entire navigational hierarchy, which is displayed as menu. Now, moving on, next we will talk about catalog site collection. So, this holds the product catalog that are published from Dynamics AX. So, this picks all the data from CRT database and holds within itself as uncategorized list. Next, going towards asset site collection. This will be the site collection in SharePoint which will hold images and videos whichever are associated to different products. Next would be search index. So, search index is the one which holds all content and metadata that is crawled. To build the search index, you must first start a full crawl of content that is specified in one or more content sources. A content source is a set of options that you can use to specify what type of content is crawled and what URLs to crawl. So, when I say crawl, it will be able to crawl the data from catalog site collection and crawl that particular data and store it in the search index. Similarly, it can crawl from the data that we can customize and add additional attributes and data to the navigational structure, and those will be crawled from the term store. So, all the indexes will be stored in the search index. The last but not the least is the rendering site collection, which is the actual storefront site collection. This holds the entire online store. As an administrator, you can define the result sources based on the content available from the search index. One way to quickly understand the concept of a result source is to think of it as a reusable query. You can create result sources to specify a location from which search results can be retrieved. For example, the URL from a catalog, or to specify the search results that can be retrieved from a particular item type, for example pictures. So, when I search for a picture, it should be finding the search index, and also it will be fetching the data from a blob cache of the site asset site collection. So overall it is a complete search driven mechanism which is followed in the SharePoint Server 2013 to render and have the entire data available for you at the storefront. Let's move on to talk about cross-site publishing in the next lesson. The cross-site collection publishing feature in SharePoint Server 2013 works in the following way. You use the authoring site collection to author and store content, and one or more publishing site collections to control the design of the site and to show the content. The functionality that is provided by this feature is known as cross-site publishing. Site collections are available as a part of the online starter site. The authoring site collection, known as the product catalog site, contains a list of product data and all libraries and lists that are shared as catalogs. The product catalog content web application uses Active Directory to authenticate content authors. The catalogs are indexed by the search system and made available to the publishing site collection, which is nothing but the publishing portal. The publishing site collection issues queries for data that is indexed and shows it on the web page by using the web parts that use search technology. For more information about it, we will be discussing in the next section. The publishing portal web application uses Active Directory authentication for designers and form based authentication for web users. This web application is configured to allow anonymous access for web users. So you brand content on the publishing site. You must note that the publishing site collection is outside the firewall. Therefore, the asset library is located in separate site collection. So I will be going ahead and showing you how to do the cross-site publishing. Let's get into my VM and have a look at it. So here I am on the Contosource side of the electronic store. Currently I am with 40,003 port, which is the intranet facing port of the online Contosource store. So here I have logged in as an administrator. However, on the internet facing side, you can always log in or you can be a guest and go ahead and do the purchase of any items. But here our expectation is to be as an administrator and configure things. So with system account logged in, I am clicking on settings and I am going to select site settings. Once I click on site settings, I come to the site settings page of this online Contosource store. So here under site administration, we have an option called manage catalog connections. So this would be the one where you will be configuring the connectivity between the catalog and the online store. So here you can see that there is retail product catalog Contosource 1 and uncategorized list. So this list is getting crawled and it is getting connected to the main site. So here is the URL of the product catalog. So this is more about connecting the list from that particular catalog with this particular online store. So you can always go ahead and disconnect, or you can always click on connect to a catalog and add a new connection to a different list from a different product catalog site. So with this we come to know about how to do the cross-site publishing. So based on this configuration, the cross-site gets published, and from the product catalog site you get the data to the main site. Now moving on, next would be about how to check whether this particular activity has happened successfully or not. So we will be discussing about validating the crawling. So managing catalog connection is one half. Next would be checking whether the crawl is happening successfully and you are getting the data. So I am going to go to central admin of the SharePoint, and out here I am going to select general application settings. On click of general application settings, under search you have an option called form search administration. Click on form search administration, and here you will find the search service application that is already configured and created. So here I am going to click on the search service application named Contoso Search Service. So here under diagnostics you can find something called crawl log. So when you click on crawl log, this is where you will find the set of logs of each and every crawling that happened with the SharePoint server. So here our site is part of local SharePoint sites. So you can check the last crawl, the last 24 hours, the last 7 days and last 30. So and you can check about the success, warning and error. On click of these you will get the respective log information on the website. So this is how you will be doing the validation of whether the catalog data is getting crawled to the main site, which is our retail Contoso store. So moving on, when content is crawled, the metadata of the items that are crawled are represented as a crawled properties. When publishing content from AX, crawled and managed properties are mapped. To explicitly control names for the managed properties, only managed properties are included in search results. In a catalog, managed properties are the specifications of the items in the library or list, such as title, color or product category. You can specify settings for managed properties to affect how the content is shown in search web parts and in search results. We recommend that you maintain and control the managed properties from AX. So we have already discussed about how to manage these properties in AX. So you can always go to the Contoso store, which is their part of the retail online stores, and you can select that particular channel and get into managed properties of the each and every product that is associated with the channel. So over there you can go to the attribute metadata and configure whether each and every attribute group is searchable, retrievable or refinable. So you have whole set of properties. Based on that, the search application will go ahead and crawl the data here and you will have it in the online store. Let's move on to the next topic, where I will be discussing about page model with starter SharePoint site. SharePoint uses templates to define and render the pages that are used for displaying in the site. The structure of a SharePoint page includes three main elements: master pages, page layouts and pages. Let me show you how it looks like in a page model structure. So master pages define the shared framing elements for all pages in your site. These elements may include the header and footer, top navigation, breadcrumb, search box, site logo and other branding elements. The master page remains consistent as visitors browse through your site. Page layouts. Page layouts define the layout for a specific class of pages. A page layout is a template for a specific type of page in your site, such as product gallery page or a product detail page. Exactly as its name implies, you can think of a page layout as defining the layout of structure for the body of a page. Moving on to the third element, which is pages. Pages are created from a page layout by authors who add content to page fields. Authors can create pages and add contents to the page fields, and they can add web parts to any web part zone or rich text box editors. Pages are structured so that content authors cannot make changes outside page fields. In this scenario, with online storefront, the main part of the page will be involved with content search web parts, which are the key web parts which holds each and every data that is shown for each and every product in the online store. So with search driven web parts such as content search web part, the content search web part would be having various styling options to display dynamic content on SharePoint pages. Each content search web part is associated with the search query and shows the result for the search query from search index. So if you see here, for a content search web part, you will have display templates involved to have the structure created. So the first would be content so it is control template and you have item template. So both a control template and an item template together is called as a display template. So with the display template you will be associating how a content search web part will be rendering that particular item in your pages. So you can have for a different product a different item template with its own set of specifications, and you can have your own set of page look and feel, and there is by default certain set of display templates which we will be discussing in the later lessons and which are available with the out of the box storefront. However, you can go ahead and create your own display template wherein you will be creating your own control template and you will be creating your own item template. So together a display template will render a different look and feel for your product. So this is the way you will be customizing your search results with content search web parts. So with this, let me move on and talk about content search web parts in the next lesson. With search driven web parts, you can dynamically present information that is stored in the search index. So if you look at this particular PPT slide, so you can find that a content search web part is associated by a control template and an item template. So these two together forms a display template. So here the presentation of data in the content search web part is controlled by entirely the display template. Out of the box, reusable web parts with Storefront are made available with the product. So here already there are few display templates that are associated with commerce runtime services, and few web parts like product gallery and product details are already bound to search index. So moving on, let me move to the next slide where these are some of the set of customizable controls which are by default available with out of the box storefront. For example, these page layouts are the pages which are part of this particular out of the box content source storefront, and our area of focus would be these display templates. So each and every display template will be holding mostly with the content search web part, and it will have a control template and an item template. Similarly, you have few of the other web parts which are for add to cart, checkout, promotion code. These are web parts which are associated with the CRT services. So moving on, we will be discussing about control template and display template. So first let us talk about control display template. So a control display template determines the overall structure and layout of how you want to present the search results, such as a list that uses paging or a slideshow. Each content search web part uses one control template. If you look here, the red boxed area is the content control template, so with which we have the entire data aligned in a common structure. So this is more of like a grouping template using which you will have additional functionalities like paging, sorting, view options and separator between each and every item. So item template would be the next one, which is part of the control template, which is more of each and every item how it needs to be rendered. So if you see here with the item template, it is more of an image with image and a text or a video and some other contents which is like description of a item. So here you will be mostly configuring and determining the manage properties that comes from the search web part as search indexed data. So these manage properties are mostly like a small sized image, a product image or a hyperlink. So using these data which comes from manage properties of the search, we will be configuring the item template. So the starter store provides several master pages, page layouts, display templates and web parts. Each page layout uses a specific master page and each page has a corresponding page layout. So here if you look, so you have a cameras page where the cameras are aligned with the control template and the display template. In this lesson, we talked about control template and display template mainly, which are part of content search web parts. Moving on, in the next lesson, I will be talking about query rules. In a query rule, you specify conditions and correlated actions. When a query meets the condition in a query rule, the search system performs the action specified in the rule to improve the relevance of the search results. Example of this might be to narrow the result or change the order in which the results are displayed. Let's quickly get into the VM, and before that I will show you what exactly a query rule mean. So here, if you see in this PPT slide, so we have a set of query rule wherein you have basics, you configure a query, and if you want to have additional filter, you can have a filter, and you can check what is the respective result that you are getting as a preview, and on click of OK, you will have this query rule build completed. So let's take a closer look at creating a query rule now. I am switching back to my VM. So here currently I am in the site settings of the retail catalog. I am sorry, it is not retail catalog, it is retail publishing portal, so which is the online storefront. So out here, if you scroll down in site settings, you will find something called search query rules, so which is under site collection administration in site settings. So once you click on search query rules, here you need to select a source. So if you see, I am going to select clearance items as the source for me. So once I select clearance items, what I can do is I can click on a new query rule. So once I click on new query rule, I can give a name that clearance query. Then if suppose you want to specifically mention that if the query matches this particular keyword, then alone you run this and get me the search results. So this is more of creating a customized search result through the query rules from the set of search indexes that we have already got through the crawling. So now you can always go ahead and add new conditions to here. You can either select advanced query, text match, these are different options that you have. So however, I am not going to touch upon this, so you can go ahead and add. There are some typical examples like you have some particular product, you do not have a product. If the customer wants to search for the product that you do not have, on type of it you can show an alternative option by running this query rule. So this is one of a prime example where we will be using query rules. So moving on, you can add a result block, you can add alternative conditions, and you can change the result by changing the query. But however, you need to also look at one of the important options in query rule, that is you need to check under context whether for which source you want to do the perform of this query. So here we have customly created for clearance items, so only for that particular source it will run this query, and this query is performed by user segments, whether you can select one of these user segments or you can select all. I am going to leave it with all. Further, if I scroll down, you can see publishing. So here I can set a start date and end date for this particular query rule, and who would be the contact person and review date. So with this you can configure a set of a query. If suppose you want to exactly match some of these values, you can select like query more common in source for brand A, B, C. So you can add like this multiple conditions, and you can also add a result block and a promoted result block. So when you click on promoted result block, you can give a title, a URL by which the promotion will take this particular query result to this particular URL. So with this you click on save, you complete the creation of a query rule. Now let us move on to talk about refiners and faceted navigation in the next lesson. You can add refiners to a page to help users quickly browse to specific content. Refiners are based on managed properties for search index and are managed through the publishing portal site collection. There are two types of refiners, both are based on managed properties. So, the first would be standalone refiners and the next is refiners for faceted navigation. A standalone refiners are usually applied in scenarios where you have unstructured content and where the refiners can be applied across all content. These refiners are frequently used on a search result page to narrow search results. An example is brand or a color that applies to all product. Adding refiners for faceted navigation is done on tagging term set on the authoring side. When specifying which refiners to use in which category, it is helpful to use the tagging term set as a guide. In our Contoso scenario, this is the product hierarchy term set. By default, when refiners label is displayed, the label will display name of the managed property. If that is not what you want, you must specify the label which will be displayed for the label which corresponds that managed property. By default, all children of a term inherits refiners that are added to a parent term. For example, a refiner that is added to the term cameras will be applied to all its children such as camcorders, camera accessories, etc. You can override this inheritance to add or remove refiners for a child category. Enabling a term set for faceted navigation. To configure refiners for faceted navigation, you must first enable the relevant term set for faceted navigation. This procedure is performed on the authoring site collection. So, let me go ahead and show you how to do that. So, moving on to my VM. So, here I am in the site settings, and in site settings there is a section called site administration. So, under site administration you have term store management. So, on click of term store management, this is where you will be adding the refiners and for the faceted navigation. So, here let me go to the site collection where we have the product hierarchy. So, 4001 is the retail product catalog, which is the authoring site. So, here let me select product hierarchy. Here you have a tab called intended use. So, this particular tab, if you scroll down, you find use this term set for faceted navigation. Once this checkbox gets checked and you have a save, which means you have enabled faceted navigation for this particular site collection's product hierarchy term store. It is term set. So, with product hierarchy, once you have this checkbox enabled for faceted navigation, now the entire set of term sets will be having the faceted navigation tab automatically coming for it. So, right now I am in electronics. If I expand, I have audio, cameras, computers, home appliances. So, let me select on cameras. If you see here, I have faceted navigation tab. So, I am going to select faceted navigation here, and you can find a set of refiners associated to it. So, if I see here, refiners for this term, which is cameras, is color, brand, price, LCD screen size, file image formats and image resolution. So, these are some of the refiners which you will find if you have a searched results of cameras. So, let me click on preview refiner. When you click on preview refiner, you will be finding what kind of a refiner it will be having. So, currently this particular refiner has some error. So, I am finding that the refiner is not displayed. Let us move on to a different refiner to show exactly how it is. So, I am going to select electronics. When I click on preview refiner, here if you see, we have color, brand and price. These three are the refiners. So, automatically when you have any of the electronic items as the search results, automatically you will get the refiners on the refiner web parts. So, if you want this refiner to be there on your pages, then you may need to get back to your page model that we discussed, where we have to go to the pages where you want the refiners to be available, and you need to add this particular refiner, which is nothing but a separate content search web part wherein you have to specifically search for refiners. So, with the refiner search web part, you can add the refiner web part, and automatically based on the current page and whatever is the search result, you will be able to get the refiners. When I say less than 10,000, so you will find this data is getting filtered. So you would have seen in most of the e-commerce store sites you will have different options. So right now let me select black. So automatically you can find the results getting updated for only black, and you can see you have a all and a black. So the remaining colors are vanished, which means we are only within the refiner of black. Further we can refine it with prosware. So now you have only the products of prosware, and further you can even go ahead and do further refinement. So this is where we will be doing the refiners. So in this case this is a control site, and I currently not have the access to go ahead and customize the refiners. However, in your case, when you have your site collection, you can go ahead and customize this refiner. On click of this, you can add further refinements based on the managed properties that are available in search index for this particular store. So I will see you in the next lesson, where I will talk about query suggestions and spelling. Query suggestions, also known as search suggestions, are suggested phrases that users have already searched for. Query suggestions appears in a list below the search box as a user types a query. By default, the search systems automatically create suggestions for a query when users have clicked the results. For that query, at least 6 times, this can be one result or any combination of results for that query. A query suggestion appears only if it contains at least one of the words that are typed. The search system generates query suggestions daily for each result source and for each site collection. Therefore, the automatically generated query suggestions can be different per result source or per site collection. When you manually add a query suggestion by using the steps in the following procedure that I am going to show you, the query suggestions will get added onto the search service application level, and they will apply to all the result sources and all the site collection. So let's go and have a look at how we can configure a query suggestion. So out here, with this lesson we will be covering about both query suggestion and spelling, and also usage analytics and recommendations. At this moment I am going to show you about query suggestion. Further I will continue talking about query spellings. So let me move to my VM. So out here I will switch to the central administration portal. So if you see in the central administration, you have to click on general application settings, and under which form search administration, and under which you will find the search service application which is there for this particular SharePoint server, which is Contesto search service. So once you go into Contesto search service, you can see there is a set of menu items that are available for you to click on and configure. So here queries and results is the section where we have query suggestion and search dictionaries, where we will be configuring the query suggestions and also the query spellings. So first let me go ahead and click on query suggestion. So when you click on query suggestion, here you can see there is a search, it's also called as search suggestions. So you can say whether you want to show the search suggestions or not when somebody tries to do a search in a site collection. So when I say site collection, it means here our online store, which is the Contesto electronic store. So here you can always go ahead and get a set of suggested phrases, and then you can say that as a suggested phrase when somebody types in the search box. So by default, search service will be having its own set of text file. You can go ahead and export that text file and then add some additional items to it and then import the same text file back. Remember, when you try to import a fresh text file, automatically it gets overridden the existing text file. So always make sure whatever you are going to do, better recommendation would be export the text file, add the additional phrases and import it back. So here if you see, you have two varieties of query suggestion. One, you can say that these are the suggested phrases, and another is never suggest phrases. So which means whichever items that are under this particular text file, so those phrases will not be available as suggestions for any search queries that a consumer is using in the search text box. So you can go ahead and export and import and then say save settings. With this we covered query suggestions. Next I will be talking about spellings. So in the same place you can click on search dictionaries. When you click on that, you can find that it automatically navigates you to the taxonomy term store. So here you can see there is a Contoso managed metadata service. So metadata service is the place where the entire term store is managed, and out here if you see, the term store has something called search dictionaries. Once I expand this term set, you will find company inclusion, company exclusions, and further you at the bottom you can find query spelling exclusions and query spelling inclusions. So you can go ahead and click on query spelling in exclusions, and you can click the down button and click on create term. So when you say create term, you need to give a name for what exactly is the spelling that you want to exclude. So I would say here as fruit. So I want to remove spelling of exclusion here with the word fruit. So you can keep adding whatever query spelling that you want to exclude. Similarly you can add any query spellings that you want to include. For example, I would search for an Windows phone. So I want the spelling to be Windows phone. If suppose somebody types wrongly Windows phone, so with any of the word missing, so automatically a query spelling gets shown with the right set of spelling for Windows phone. So these are some of the suggestions and spellings that you can configure with central administration level. So this gets implicated to each and every site collection that is there with the SharePoint server. So with this I conclude about search settings, query spellings and also query suggestions. So moving on to usage analytics and recommendations. Usage analytics in SharePoint Server 2013 automatically tracks how different items are viewed by users. Every time that a user views an item, the system issues a usage event and adds the event to the total and recent viewed counts for that particular item. So the following usage events are pre-configured: views, number of views for a single item, page or a document. Further going on, recommendations displayed. So which means the number of items a single item, page or a document was displayed as a recommendation. Further, if we talk about options like recommendation clicks, so this is again pre-configured, where a number of times a single item, page or a document was clicked when it was displayed as a recommendation. You can use these usage analytics information to configure recommendations on your site. This is an out of the box feature available with SharePoint, and these usage analytics can be retrieved and even reports can be generated through it. So the recommendations that are shown are based on how users previously interacted with our site, tracked by usage events. So you can use the data that is generated by usage events in the following ways: showing recommendations or popular items on your site, sort search results by the number of counts, and you can also generate different reports, wherein few reports worth to mention would be view the usage event data in the most popular items usage report and view the usage event data in the popularity trends report. So that brings us to the end of this module. Try out the practices and I will see you in the next module review. In this module, we learned how we use the power of search with SharePoint in e-commerce for AX, how cross-site configuration works with SharePoint and authoring and publishing happens across SharePoint sites. We also learned about page model and web paths used in e-commerce starter sites, which are part of Retail SDK for customization. Then we looked at how query rules can be configured in SharePoint site and how to add refiners to search results. I will see you in the next module where we will talk about e-commerce deployment topology.